With Honkai Star Rail's ever-growing roster, there's a lot of things that do cross the mind on what can be useful and beneficial for your account. Whether you're a new player, or someone who's returning to the game, or just someone who likes to hear someone else's opinions on some characters, look no further, as in this video, we're going to be discussing what characters I believe are worth going for up to our current patch of 2.0. There were a lot of characters we originally decided were worth going for, but as the game grows, lots of opinions begin to change. We've also gained lots of new game modes with the increase of new modes for the simulated universe like Storm Disaster and Golden Gears, and even in Pure Fiction releasing as one of our new game modes for the end game, bringing AoE characters back into the limelight. So with that in mind, let's get started on some quick little criteria. Now, with a lot of these characters and there being so many, I do think it's hard to talk about them all. And I don't want to run along all day trying to convince everyone that every unit's worth going for, so I'm definitely going to be picking from my own personal experience while also trying to lay out as many points as possible. There is some criteria I like to follow, and we'll be breaking this video into 4 sections. Pridwin has a really great breakdown for character categories. This includes damage dealers, specialists, amplifiers, and sustain. If you're an avid watcher of a lot of the content creators here on the platform, these are some of the terms we do throw around a lot. At the start of each section, I'll break down each of these categories in the best way that I see fit, and then try and give you my own take on it all. I'll be linking in the description below the Pridwin website, and linking to their tier list that further explains how they do categorize and rate characters. And now with that, I would love if you could take the chance to subscribe. I was told a lot of people don't notice they're not subscribed to a channel unless it's mentioned, so check it out and consider giving me a chance. We've been growing really well recently. I would love to keep providing you with all sorts of content. Now, let's get into the video. One of the most important roles to look for and focus on is the damage dealer role. This is essentially the role you use to plan the rest of your team around. They're the star of the show and will do everything in their power to be able to destroy whatever is on the field as fast as humanly possible. The great thing about damage dealers is they really are just a pick your own adventure. What I mean by that is we now practically have a viable damage dealer for each element in the game, and that for the most part is able to hold for themselves very well, or can be powered up to be able to be that killer. Jing Liu, Imbibitor Lunay, and Sela are 3 units in their own respective element that you could say are probably the best damage dealer. For Quantum, Sela's got a good fight with Jing Tui, who's a very high-risk, high-reward character. If you play your cards right, this little 4-star girl who's got the worth ethic of a snail can absolutely decimate in damage. However, these damage dealers don't really stop there. With Pure Fiction, the AoE-centered game mode coming into play, a lot of the older Erudition characters started to catch their traction back to the top. Herta, the free 4-star we received from the simulated universe, shines incredibly well in Pure Fiction. When paired up with a Himeko, these 2 are the queens of Pure Fiction, and you can practically consider one of your sides set. Argenti is another favorite that comes to mind. He's absolutely killer when it comes to Pure Fiction, and he's nothing to scoff at when it comes to doing other content as well. Being a DPS that purely focuses on power with his ultimate, Argenti's multipliers go through the roof without any sort of worry, putting him right next to those top damage dealers, if not sometimes outperforming them. These are just some of the characters I do think are worth looking out for, and picking up yourself a copy, or multiple copies if they are 4 stars at bat. And with that, we can move on to our next section, the specialists. Specialists are an interesting bunch of characters. You'd more than likely consider them to be enablers more than anything. These are the kinds of characters that you would consider a bit more special, where they can play a lot better with other characters or allow you to do things that are sort of unorthodox. These things lead to new archetypes to come to play, and let me tell you, there's some great characters in this category. Let's go over some heavy hitters, shall we? Damage over time as a whole is a very big investment. There's so many characters that are required to feel invested and well built for damage over time, and it's mainly because you have to try and cover all your ground with 4 different possible elements. Luckily for damage over time, we now have coverage for every element, being Wind with Black Swan and Sampo, Physical with Luca, Fire with Buenaifen, and Lightning with Kafka. To go over damage over time a bit more, it's essentially you applying your effects at the start of your turn, but you won't see any return from those effects until it's the enemy's turn, where then all the effects that are stacked up together will all trigger at once. Consider it like poison from Pokemon. The most important character of the bunch is Kafka. She's basically the tier 0 unit that you would need for your dot teams. Dot explosions allow for the gameplay to change even further, no longer having to wait for the enemy's turn, and having it on command with her skill and ultimate is incredible. Black Swan gets an honorable mention, being one of the newest members to the cast, increasing the functionality of Dot Team as a whole with her Arcana, while also being able to provide a defense shred with her skill, being incredibly valuable for dots since they cannot crit. Any of the 4-star dot characters are also great assets, and you'd pick one of them based on the requirement of the element being used for the fights ahead. Let's move on to another playstyle standpoint, and that's follow-up attacks. Follow-up attacks in terms for Honkai Star Rail are essentially when a character takes an action, another attack will trigger following the initial attack, henceforth follow-up attack. Counterattacks such as retaliating when you're hit are also considered to be follow-up attacks as well. Topaz is quite a special character. Topaz comes with her own partner, Numby, who gets added to the action order and acts as his own individual. When Topaz uses her skill, Numby applies a debuff to the enemy that allows for that target to be focused by Numby's attacks, while also increasing the damage taken by all incoming follow-up attacks as well. While some will say she isn't realistically necessary for a follow-up composition, every follow-up character currently and in the future will benefit from her follow-up debuff. The more follow-up characters that have began to release, the importance of Topaz had began to rise. The great thing about specialists, or playstyle enablers, is there will be a style for everybody. You never really know what you'll like until you get your hands dirty and try it out yourself. These characters are the ones you need to look out for, and it'll be the cornerstones for keeping their compositions stable. But with stability also comes a whole new world, and that world is enhancements. Let's move on to our next section of this video and talk about amplifiers. Your characters can only do so much when it comes to raw potential, as well as general play, but that doesn't mean that this is the limit that they can achieve. In Honkai Star Rail currently, we're only allowed to have 4 team members. It's up to us as players to be able to build our team together, find synergies, and find ways to strengthen them all together to getting a better combination. Amplifiers allow for this to happen in a much more elevated pace, by allowing the introduction of buff and debuffs to the team and implanting them onto enemies. Take your team to the next level by trying to grab one of these few characters that I'll be sharing with you. Another added benefit for these amplifiers is building them seems to be a lot more comfier than it would to be building your damaging units. In the normal light of just getting the unit ready to be used in a workable state, you can build these units in a bit more defensively way, since the offensive buffs they can offer can usually be attained in other ways, such as your substats from your relics, or the big main stat buffs from some of the pieces. Ruan Mei is the first of the bunch of characters that crosses my mind. A unit focusing on maximizing the benefits of break effect, as well as allowing for 2 turns of weakness break on the enemy if using her ultimate. She benefits by offering the team a speed buff, an elemental damage buff, as well as an all-type penetration buff. Building break effect was useful, but it was never usually a first choice. Ruan Mei takes break effect and further increases the team's damage based on her break effect up to 180% of her break. She's by far the best buffer for a 2 DPS composition, as well as you can use her in other scenarios as well. If there was ever a character you should be chasing, Ruan Mei is definitely one of them you should be going for. While you do have to lose a 50-50 or have gotten lucky on your beginner banner, Rania is the next unit that I'll be bringing up. Rania has one of the best skills in the game, essentially allowing for you to bring a unit forward to take another action. This can lead to some interesting situations where you can build your Rania to a speed right below your main damage dealer, to then be able to allow them to take an action and then take another action after Rania uses her skill. Not to mention, her ultimate provides a massive attack boost as well as a crit damage boost based on the amount of crit damage she has. Tingyan's another character I want to bring up because she's basically a 5-star locked in a 4-star's body. Tingyan provides you an attack buff based on her attack, as well as can provide a flat damage boost with her ultimate, while additionally providing energy back to your teammates. Energy is a very valuable resource, as with most basic and skills, you naturally generate 20 energy on a basic and 30 energy on a skill respectively. Tingyun's able to provide up to 50 energy and 10 more on top of that with her E6. This is definitely not something to scoff at. Pela is one of the last amplifiers I want to bring up, and she's more of a focus on debuffing the enemy. Pela has the option to remove one buff on an enemy by using her skill. Additionally, if an enemy is debuffed, Pela can gain an additional 10 energy by attacking them. The great thing about this is Pela can apply a defense shred with her ultimate, which will then allow for her to generate more energy back by attacking the enemies. Pela and Tingyun are by far some of the best 4-stars you can get your hands on. If you see them on a banner, it's definitely worth trying to get some duplicates of their character. Now, buffing the team is all fun, but there's sometimes something more important than that, and that's keeping your team alive. If all your teammates are dead, you can't really do much then, can you? This leads into our last section that we'll be talking about, and that is our sustain. Sustains are the life of the party. They'll keep you up when you're down, and honestly, as the game has progressively gone further and further into its life, our sustains are also giving us more offensive capabilities now too. For our sustains, there's a solid 3 pillars for what your sustain should be looking out for in the future when they're returning. And let's talk about them here. The thing about sustains is while they are beneficial for you overall, look at your teams, see what you're missing, and see how they be benefiting for you. Xuan is a really great sustainer. She redirects damage from the team towards herself, she can heal for a bit on her ultimate, and she provides the team with a crit rate buff while also providing an HP boost based off her max HP for the team. Also, when she's below 50% HP, she'll trigger a heal that she can get a bonus stack from her ultimate that'll take 90% of the damage and give it back to her as health. Does your team have a problem with survivability? Does a bit of extra crit rate help the cause? Xuan's your choice. Woho's next up to bat. Woho is a hybrid healer where she heals from her skill with initial heal, then further on when the teammate's turn comes around, while also dispelling debuffs that are on them. Her ultimate is really the coolest thing of her kit. She restores all allies' energy while also providing an attack boost. Woho is by far one of the best healers for the damage over time team, as well as for the teams that they rely on their ultimates. Getting that last extra bit of energy can be incredible. It can also be a make or break based on what's happening in the current situation. Does any of that tickle your fancy? Then Woho is your choice for the pickings. We've got one sustain that's actually a tanker, we've got another that's a hybrid healer. Let's move on to our last one, which is Luocha. Do you think you have a problem with surviving? Well, sorry, you don't have a problem anymore. Luocha sees you get hit and absolutely destroyed, and he decides to punch you back to the tip-top shape, and you're just like, what just happened? Luocha has this fancy bonus heal that he can do every 2 turns when an ally drops below 50%, triggering his skill without it costing a skill point, while also cleansing a debuff. His ultimate is pretty incredible as well. It attacks all enemies and can remove one of their buffs present, also gaining a stack of the Abyss Flower. These Abyss Flowers, once he gets 2 of them, he'll then place a healing field on the floor, and for every action taken within his healing field, he'll heal the entire party. This man has the power to keep you alive for 3 millennia if you give him the chance to, and that's basically for free most of the time. It's kind of ridiculous. Do you want to live a life filled with no regrets and not have a single worry in the world? Then Luocha's your choice. The thing about these sustainers is they're all good, and honestly, they're all equally as good. It just depends on your situation and how you want to play the game, or you should consider trying to grab these units. That's one of the most important things with the big 3 here in play, and honestly, you'll never make a bad choice with getting any of these units. I think Honkai Star Rail is absolutely incredible, and the team building aspects is one of my favorite things to have and tinker with entirely. As the game grows more and more, our opinions all start to change, and what we think is worth it will also change based on the state of the game. But for now, why don't we just take what we have at face value, go for it, and see that boost for our accounts, and then play around with the situation that we're in. These were all my personal favorite units to bring up within each category, and honestly, I really do hope you were able to get something out of it. And hey, if you didn't really get anything out of all that, well, I tried my best, that's tough. Thanks for watching. Would love if you could take the chance to subscribe, leave a comment with what your favorite unit is in the game. I'm gonna go figure out a way that I can mention Kafka in the next 15 videos. So, till next time, peace.